What's up everybody, Jinteki here. So Compile is a 2-player head-to-head card game that was released in 2024 by Michael Yang. And the game is about two battling AIs who are fighting to be the first to understand the world around them and then shape that world in their image. So yeah, it's a pretty crazy and esoteric theme. But I was recommended the game by Shut Up and Sit Down and I ended up liking it quite a bit. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to go through every single protocol that comes in the game and I'm going to explain each individual card. So the idea is you should be able to go down into the timestamps and just pick a card that you might have a question about or you're trying to see how they work, or a protocol. And so this video is kind of acting like a reference. You know, if you're trying to learn the game, or if you're thinking about buying it but you want to see what the cards are about, or maybe you just read the rules and have you're confused about something, well then this video is for you. I will give a very brief overview of what the game is about and what's supposed to be going on, but if you want a proper how to play, there's an official how to play video on YouTube that's pretty good. And if you want a proper review, well then check out the Shut Up and Sit Down one, because I'm not about to make a video that competes with a Shut Up and Sit Down video. So with that out of the way, let's get into the overview. All right, so once again, this is going to be the most basic high-level overview that I could possibly give. This is not in any way intended to be a how to play. So first off, what's the goal of Compile? So each player is going to choose 3 protocols at the beginning of the game, and your goal is to compile all 3 of your protocols. When you compile one of your protocols, you will flip it over, and the first to flip over all 3, they win the game. Now, how do you compile your protocols? So to compile one of your protocols in Compile, you have to have 10 value worth of cards on your side in a line. A line is, you can think of it as a lane. So we have 3 lines here. So for example, I have this light 5 in my hand. I could play it to this line. I immediately do what the card says, which says to discard a card. So I'll just choose a card from my hand and discard it. So players are just going to be doing that back and forth. As soon as a player reaches 10 in a line, they're going to get to compile. The first to compile 3 cards wins the game. Now the cool thing about Compile is that at the beginning of the game, both players are going to draft from all these protocols, and they're each going to draft 3 protocols to make up their deck. So each protocol comes with 6 cards, and that'll make an 18 card deck. And that's the bare minimum overview of Compile. Like I said, if you want a more proper explanation of what's actually going on in the game, I would recommend watching the how to play video. All right, with that out of the way, let's move on to the overview. All right, let's start off with the life deck, Bring About New Growth. All right, so this deck, I think thematically or mechanically is all about seeding potential and then realizing that potential through other effects, which you'll see here. Let's start with the 0. So the thing you're gonna notice is usually the 0 card has have the craziest effects, obviously, because they're worth 0 normally, so they need to have crazy effects, but they also give you probably the best idea of what the deck is trying to do thematically, what the protocol is trying to do thematically and mechanically. So with Life 0, let's start with the middle ability, which is going to happen immediately upon revealing. Play the top card of your deck face down in each line where you have a card. So this card could be potentially anywhere between 2 to 6 value in all of your lines. It's spread out, but still that could be pretty amazing, especially with what the other cards in the life protocol are. You're probably not going to get away with any shenanigans with this card because of the top effect, which says if this card is covered at the end of your turn, you delete it. So because it puts a card in every line where you have a card, it's going to cover itself, and then at the end of the turn it is going to delete itself. Now keep in mind a couple things with this card. If your deck is empty, you do not draw anymore. You don't reshuffle your discard pile. You only reshuffle your discard pile when you draw cards. So keep that in mind. All right, now let's take a look at the next one. Life 1, flip 1 card, flip 1 card. So if we already think back to Life 0, which could potentially put some face down cards in our lines, well, you can use Life 1 to flip those cards face up and potentially nab yourself some more points, which is pretty sweet. Now this is a pretty versatile card too, because you can also use it to flip your opponent's cards. But keep in mind that this card only affects uncovered cards. So this could say flip 1 uncovered card, flip 1 uncovered card. It is implicit in the rules, and so just keep that in mind when you're using this card. Draw 1 card. You may flip 1 face down card. Once again, that's 1 face down uncovered card, but the life deck has a couple of draw effects, and that's pretty cool. And this is just another way to flip your face down cards face up. And remember, when you flip them face up, you also get the middle effect. So not only do you get extra points, probably if it's not a 1 or a 0, you also get whatever cool effect is on the card. So that's pretty sweet. Life 3, when this card would be covered, first play the top card of your deck face down in another line. So this is kind of like similar to the Life 0, but it only happens whenever it's covered. Once again, keep in mind that if your deck is empty, you will not get any card, and you will not be reshuffling your discard pile. Life 4, if this card is covering a card, draw one card. So this is some nice synergy with the Life 3. If you manage to get Life 4 on Life 3, like let's say you have Life 3 as your top card of a stack, and you play the Life 4, the first thing you would do is check to play the top card of your deck face down in another line, and then you would draw the card off the Life 4. One thing I forgot to mention, when you're playing cards off the top of your deck face down, you do not get to look at what the card is. You can only look at cards that are already on the field and on your side, like in one of your stacks. So while you're moving a card from your deck to the field, you cannot look at it. So it is going to be random which cards are going to end up where, but usually flipping your own cards is good, so it's not a big deal. All right, that was Life 4. And so for every protocol, I think every protocol that's been printed so far, the 5 card is always just you discard one card. So 5 is a lot of power, and to make up for that, instead of doing something that would usually be beneficial, you end up discarding a card. So all the 5s are the same. I'll still show them on the screen, but I'm not going to explain them from here on out. They're pretty straightforward. All right, so I feel like it makes sense thematically to follow up Life with its thematic counterpart. So here we have Death, Nothing Shall Survive. So the Death protocol is a lot more straightforward than the Life one, I think. It's probably one of the most straightforward ones, because every single card in the Death protocol, aside from the 5, they all delete other cards. That's all they do. As the numbers get lower, obviously the potency of that deletion effect will get higher. So let's start with the Death 0. Whoops, that's upside down. All right, starting with delete one card from each other line. So this, I mean, the potential on this card is awesome. You know, not only do you get to target 2 cards, there's not a whole lot of stipulations as far as which cards you delete. Of course, it does say delete one card, so they still have to be uncovered cards, but still, this is pretty cool. Next one, Death 1. At the start of your turn, you may draw one card. If you do, delete one other card, then delete this card. So this is only a one-time effect, really, because as soon as you use it, this card deletes itself, but you can kind of set up when you want to use that effect, which is pretty cool. And you can target any other card, but again, it has to be an uncovered card. One thing to note is that even if this card is covered, it will still delete itself. This card cannot protect itself. It will still delete itself. Keep that in mind. Death 2, delete all cards in one line with values 1 or 2. So this is pretty cool. You can target, obviously you're usually going to want to target a line that, you didn't put the Death 2 in, because it will then delete itself. So you usually have to target one of the other lines, but still, of course, that could be tricky sometimes, because if you play this card face up, you have to play it into the Death protocol. So you might have to, if you really wanted to delete all the cards in another line, that would probably take some setup, but still. Also keep in mind, it does say all cards. So all cards means all cards. So it bypasses the covered rule. That means that even if a card is covered, if it has a value of 1 or 2, it's going to go away. All right, Death 3, delete one face down card. Again, delete one face down uncovered card. Pretty straightforward. We're talking about the Life deck and how they keep on planting face down cards. So maybe this is meant to be like a thematic foil to the Life deck. Death 4, delete a card with a value of 0 or 1. So it has to be an uncovered card with a value of 0 or 1. This is definitely probably one of the weakest effects that we might come across. It does give you 4 power, but this is a pretty weak effect overall. But still, I mean, those 0 cards can be potent, so usually you'll probably want to be targeting that, and they have nice effects, right? So keep in mind, though, of course, the card does still have to be uncovered. And finally, we have discard one card on the 5. Keep in mind, obviously, when using this deck, that when you delete cards, the effects below those cards are going to go off for your opponent. So just be careful when playing this deck. All right, now let's move on to Darkness, an absence of light. So the idea behind Darkness is you're mostly, aside from some draw effects, you're mostly shifting your opponent's cards around, but you're also shifting your own cards around, and that could be pretty useful, as we'll see here in a second. So let's start with Darkness 0. All right, draw 3 cards. Great. Shift one of your opponent's covered cards. All right, so that's pretty good. Obviously, shifting your opponent's cards around can mess with their game playing quite a bit. Keep in mind, of course, that when you take one of your opponent's covered cards and you move it to a new line, it's going to become the new uncovered card of that stack, and the effect of that card is going to go off. So just be careful how you use this. All right, flip one of your opponent's cards. Of course, it has to be an uncovered card. You may shift that card. Again, so you're going to want to be careful which card you pick. I've had a friend use this against me and they accidentally like flipped the metal 6 because they didn't know what they were doing. So you're probably going to want to turn cards face down with this one and then shift them like that. So yeah, that's pretty neat. We haven't really talked about shifting yet, so keep in mind when you shift a card from one line to another, it always becomes the top card of that stack. So it always becomes the new uncovered card of that stack. All right, Darkness 2, this is probably my favorite card of this protocol. And let's look at the top effect here. So all face down cards in this stack have a value of 4. Now keep in mind this says stack, not line. So this is only for your side of the field in that line. So they're only for your cards, and that's pretty cool. It also says you may flip one covered card in this line. So if you have a face up card that that's covered in this line, you could turn it face down for a solid 4 points on that card. So so this card and 2 face down cards is enough to compile a protocol. So that's pretty cool. And we'll see that the next few cards have some synergy with this card, right? Play one card face down in another line. Technically, this isn't direct synergy. You're putting on face down cards, but of course, you might want to play this in a different line than the Darkness 2, but you have to play in the same line if they're both in a Darkness line. So just keep that in mind. But still, you could turn this into more of an upside. And of course, this is also 5 points spread out across 2 lines. So, that's pretty cool. Shift one face down card. So again, you take one of those face down cards you have in another line and shift it to that Darkness 2 line. Pretty cool. Once again, keeping in mind that it has to be an uncovered card, and then discard one card for the Darkness 5. All right, so next up we got Light, Burn Away the Dark. All right, so I think that Light is kind of similar to Darkness actually, although it does have some like kind of cards that seem like they're meant to counter Darkness, which is fitting. So let's take a look at that. All right, starting off with the Light 0. I actually really love this card. Flip one card, draw cards equal to that card's value. So, this card could draw you anywhere probably from like, normally you'll probably get around like 2 cards with this card, but still. So 2 things to keep in mind. Obviously, flip one card means flip one uncovered card. And then when you draw cards equal to the value, you draw cards equal to the value after you flip it. So for example, here, let me take this metal 6 card. If there was this metal 6 card and you were to select it, it would first flip, but now the value is 2, so you would only draw 2 cards. So keep that in mind when you're using Light 0. Let's say you flip a card and that card happens to delete themselves, or some other effect happens to delete that card before you get to the second box. So for example, if you end up selecting this card, again metal 6, it says that when this card would be covered or flipped, first delete this card. So this card would delete itself before that second line of text would go off. However, Light 0 still targets the card. It'll just target the card in the discard pile. And because all cards in the discard pile are face up, that means in this case you would be drawing 6 cards. So, all right, Light 1 says at the end of your turn, draw 1 card. And that's going on for as long as this card remains uncovered. So, that's pretty neat. Light 2, draw 2 cards, reveal 1 face down card. You may shift or flip that card. All right, so first off, it says reveal here. So you get to take a look at the card that you could potentially shift or flip before you end up shifting or flipping it, and then you get the option to do so. So you won't end up accidentally flipping one of your opponent's 5s when you don't mean to. Of course, that when you shift a card, you do reveal the middle box on the card underneath, so keep that in mind. And if you flip that card, the same thing, so use it wisely. All right, Light 3, shift all face down cards in this line to another line. So a couple important things with this one. It says all, so this bypasses covered cards, okay? So this will target covered cards. This will target covered face down cards in a line. It also says in this line to another line, so that means on both sides of the field. Now keep in mind that the cards do retain their relative positioning. So what do I mean by that? So let me try to demonstrate this real quick. Explaining what's going on with the Light 3, right? So let's say we play Light 3 in this line here. All right, now we shift all face down cards in this line to another line. So let's take a look at all the face down cards the other player has here on this line. So we're gonna grab them, and these are gonna keep their relative position to each other, right? And then we're gonna choose a different line to put them in. I guess we'll just say like fire for now, right? So these cards are all still in the same order that they were, and this was what your end result would look like. Light 4, your opponent reveals their hand. This card's very straightforward. And I'm not a huge fan of it because I think it's just because I'm not very good at the game, so I'm not very good at using that information, but maybe other players would find that useful. And of course, Light 5, you discard 1 card. All right, our next protocol. Fire, burn at both ends. So the theme with fire is you're discarding cards out of your hand, and when you choose to do so, you usually get some sort of neat effect. So that is the main idea with fire. The nice thing is that fire, you're going to be discarding a lot of cards, but it does have some sort of self-sustaining ways to kind of keep that flame alive. Pun completely intended. All right, fire 0. First, the immediate thing that happens. So flip 1 other card, you draw 2 cards. So you draw 2 cards. That's very nice. Obviously, it says 1 other card, so uncovered card. When this card would be covered, first draw 1 card, then flip 1 other uncovered card. So I think from here on out, I'm just gonna add the word uncovered when I read the text. But anyway, so this card isn't really doing what I said it was doing thematically, but I would think of this card as kind of like one of your like fuel cards. So this is giving you fuel to do all your other cards. So obviously it's drawing, you got multiple ways to draw you cards. This card will probably draw you 3 cards on its own. And then it lets you, of course you can flip your opponent's cards, but you could also flip your own cards to get those effects, whenever you need them. So let's take a look at Fire 1. So discard 1 card. If you do, delete 1 card. Again, delete 1 uncovered card, but pretty cool. Be careful, of course, when deleting your opponent's cards, just because you want to keep in mind whatever effect is below them. Fire 2, discard 1 card. If you do, return 1 card. So instead of deleting, it returns it to your opponent's hand, which is, less good than deleting, but it's, not bad. Of course, return 1 uncovered card. Fire 3, you may discard 1 card. If you do, flip 1 uncovered card. This happens at the end of your turn every time, as long as this card remains uncovered. And, the neat thing, of course, you can select your own cards, so you can select your own cards to maybe activate those discard effects if you want, or synergize with any of your other protocols. But I like the flip cards because they're versatile. Fire 4, discard 1 or more cards, draw the amount discarded plus 1. So this card is probably your second fuel card, right? And the fire protocol probably needs that because you are discarding a lot. But this card is pretty amazing for a 4 card, I think. Usually the 4s have some sort of like meh or neutral effect, but this one, I love the effect on this one, so that's pretty cool. And Fire 5, you discard 1 card. No bonus, unfortunately. All right, next up on the list, we have water. So I feel like water is one of the weirder protocols because I feel like this one feels more like a support protocol to me. Like on its own, it doesn't feel like it does a whole lot, but maybe paired with the other protocols, it's a lot more potent. At least that's the vibe I'm getting. But don't take anything I say in this video as advice. This is just the vibe that I'm getting. So let's start with the water 0. So flip 1 other card, flip this card. Of course, we're always talking about uncovered cards with this one. So this card is worth 2 when you play it, at least. So that's pretty cool. And that does kind of synergize with another card. So you'll be able to flip some of your other cards or flip your opponent's cards. It depends. This one, I think, the usefulness of it really depends on what your other protocols are, more so than the other ones. Water 1, play the top card of your deck face down in each other line. So remember that if your deck is empty, this card doesn't do anything. You do not get to reshuffle your deck or your discard pile into your deck when you're just playing cards off the top of your deck. You only ever do that when you need to draw. Water 2, draw 2 cards, rearrange your protocol. So I feel like this is like the key card in the deck more than the actual 0 is, because you get to draw 2 cards, and this is where I think this 2 becomes very important with the other cards, as you'll see here in a second. Also keep in mind, when you rearrange your protocols, you have to rearrange your protocols, so you have to change them in some way. You are not allowed to just keep them as they are. But if you really wanted to keep them the way that they are, there is a potential way for you to like change it back, as we'll see in a second. So water 3, return all cards with a value of 2 in 1 line. So this could be a potential swing depending on how you use it. You could also use this, of course, to bring back the water 2 to draw yet more cards and rearrange your protocols back. You could also use it, since the water 0 is going to flip itself, it will be a 2, so you could use it to get the water 0 back. Again, I'm not sure how useful that is, but I'm not an expert at this game by any means. I haven't played it that many times, so just keep that in mind. Water 4, return 1 of your cards. So again, so you can return any cards. Obviously, return cards go back into your hand. Probably should have said that earlier, but return 1 of your uncovered cards back to your hand. So again, You could target one of the 2s. You could potentially target the 3 if you really wanted to mess with your opponent. But again, I think this one's not as obvious as how you would use it. And of course, the water 5, you discard 1 card. All right, now we're getting into some of the weirder themes. We don't really have everything else was very straightforward so far. Light, darkness, death, life, fire, water. Let's get into speed. Quicken with every step. So speed is all about, I think, well, speed has a couple of unique things about it. Its 0 card is very unique. It's mostly about shifting cards around. It does have some draw in there, but again, I think this is another one of those like more supporty protocols, but let's get into it. All right, first off, speed 0. Play 1 card. So as soon as you play this card, you get to play a second card from your hand. It might not be completely obvious why you may or may not want to do that. This is the only card in the game that does something like this. So there are some kind of weird interactions and combos that you can do with this, but I will let you figure those out for yourself. All right, speed 1. Draw 2 cards. That's the first thing that happens when you play this card. Then the passive says, after you clear cache, draw 1 card. So keep in mind, at the end of every turn, you do what's called checking cache. So you check cache and you see if you have 5 or more cards in hand. If you do have more, let's say you have 6 or more in hand, then you clear cache, discarding down to 5. And so you only ever get this effect if you have more than 6 cards in hand at the end of your turn. Speed 2, I think this is one of the coolest cards. When this card would be deleted by compiling, shift this card instead, even if this card is covered. So it stays around after a compile. So normally all the cards in a line on both your side and your opponent's side disappear, but not with speed 2. This does not affect the compile in any way. This doesn't stop it in any sort of way. So I really like this one. Speed 3, shift one of your other uncovered cards. At the end, you may shift one of your uncovered cards. If you do, flip this card. So this just lets you move your stuff around, and you know, it's potentially, so if you have this, if you're trying to like compile your speed protocol, you could shift cards into this lane to try to give you a boost, or, you know, just start moving all your power into a single line. So that's pretty cool. Speed 4, shift one of your opponent's face down uncovered cards. This is about right to me. It seems like most of the 4s have kind of like neutral abilities, and this feels like a very neutral one to me. And then speed 5, discard 1 card. All right, next up on our list, we got Spirit. This is another weird one to me, I think, because the effects are very different. Like the cards feel like very individual cards in this one, but they all do something kind of, well, not all of them, but a couple of the cards in this deck do something very unique, and you know, it's very much like only the kind of effect that you could get from Spirit. So it's up to you to, you know, find the potential behind these protocol here. But let's just go through the cards, and you know, I'm just here to give you guys the rulings on how the cards work. I'm not here to like tell you what cards are good or not. But anyway, Spirit 0, refresh, draw 1 card, then skip your check cache phase. All right, so keep in mind, we haven't been talking about this at all, but there is this aspect of the game called control. And if this is your first game or you haven't played a game yet, you might not want to play with it the first game, but it is very important once you start playing with it. So this control component here, when you refresh, this counts as a normal refresh action. So if you have control, you get to rearrange one player's protocols. So keep that in mind. And then of course this control component would go back to the neutral position, and then you draw 1 card, and then at the bottom you skip your check catch phase, so you don't have to discard down to 5. Pretty cool. Okay, so this is easily my favorite card in this deck. This might be one of my favorite cards in the game. But Spirit 1, so we got 3 boxes here. I don't think we've seen a card with all 3 boxes full yet, so let's look at what happens immediately first. As soon as you play this card, draw 2 cards. Very cool. All right, the passive. So when you play cards face up, they may be played without matching protocols. So that's crazy. So when this card is in play, you no longer have to worry about like you only playing your spirit to your spirit line, or only playing your fire to your fire line, or whatever. You can just play them to wherever. Fantastic. However, there's a catch. At the start of your turn, either discard 1 card from your hand or flip this card. So you're going to have to pay for it, basically. It kind of has like an upkeep cost. So still a fantastic card, I think, but just keep that in mind. It's pretty cool. Okay, Spirit 2. You may flip 1 card. You may flip 1 uncovered card. Fairly straightforward. It's funny to me that these 2 cards on the top were so interesting, and then this one is a lot more straightforward. You know, just flip 1 card. Yeah, That's it. Spirit 3, after you draw cards, so this is a passive, you may shift this card even if this card is covered. Again, pretty neat. It says after you draw cards, by the way. So actually, so this is, so let's say an effect says draw 2 cards. You still only do this thing once because it's after you draw cards. It's not for each card you draw. Okay, so keep that in mind. Spirit 4, swap the positions of 2 of your protocols. Okay, so again, this is about where the 4s are at as far as like power level, I think. This is slightly different from Water 2. Water 2 said rearrange your protocols. This says just swap the positions of 2 of your protocols, so you can only move 2 of them. You're only swapping instead of rearranging, where you can just like configure them how you want. And then you know the drill. Spirit 5, you discard 1. All right, let's get into what's probably this. I think this is easily my favorite protocol to play. I love the simplicity of it, and I just love how it feels to play. So this is Gravity. So the idea behind this one is just like whatever your gravity line is, that one is going to have a lot of pressure put on it, because the gravity, I mean, it feels heavy. It feels like this protocol is trying to draw all the cards into the Gravity Protocol. In my play, when I was playing with it, you know, the downside is, of course, once you're going to compile that line, but you'll still have those gravity cards, which are still going to be like grabbing everything to one line. But then maybe you can use other cards like Water or Spirit to try to rearrange your protocols. But okay, I only said so much because I love playing with this one so much. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, Gravity 0. For every 2 cards in this line, play the top card of your deck face down under this card. So that's for every 2 in the whole line. So that includes your side of the field and your opponent's side of the field, of course, right? So this could be, I mean, I assume on average it'll probably be around like 4 power or 4 value worth of cards, but you know, it could potentially be more than that. And again, this is a 0, so that's just like a great start. Gravity 1, draw 2 cards, shift 1 card either to or from this line. So to or from. So again, you can, that is versatile. It does have to be an uncovered card, of course, but that is still versatile. And I feel like usually you'd want to use it to like put pressure on this line here. Gravity 2, flip 1 card, shift that card to this line. Again, just drawing everything to this line. I love it. It's just simple. Oh, of course. Flip 1 uncovered card. Shift 1 uncovered. Wait, what happened to Gravity 3? Oh, there is no Gravity 3. That's right, because actually, Gravity is one of the 2 decks in the main box that goes all the way up to 6. So that's pretty awesome. Gravity 4. Shift 1 uncovered face down card to this line. I feel like this is a good effect for a 4, considering this is what Gravity wants to do. Gravity 5, typical, you discard 1 card. Gravity 6, your opponent plays the top card of their deck face down in this line. So this is a downside. It's probably more of a downside than discarding a card. So this is kind of like a net 4, but this does also mean that like you could potentially compile with 1 less card, like with this and 1 other like 4 or higher, you know, you're already compiling. So that's Gravity. Again, I love this one, but that's just me. I shouldn't be biased in this video. All right, now on to another one of those weird ones. Here we have Metal. Well, so Metal does have a theme. So here we have Metal, hardened against all. And so the theme is preventing your opponent from doing stuff. So that is the theme behind Metal. And I think it does shine through pretty well. So let's take a look. So first off, we have Metal 0. Your opponent's total value in this line is reduced by 2. So keep in mind that if the opponent's stack is empty here, they will have -2 in the stack, and you will be winning that line. So that will matter for when you're checking for control. So you can have negative value in this game in a line. And then as soon as you play the card, you flip 1 uncovered card. All right, cool. Draw 2 cards for Metal 1. Your opponent cannot compile next turn. So this is probably like, I think this is the only card that does this. No, yeah, I'm like 100% sure. This is the only card that does this in the in this box here. So your opponent cannot compile next turn. So keep in mind, so when it comes to your turn, if you can compile, you have to compile, and that's your whole turn, right? If you tell your opponent they cannot compile, well, then they get to do one of their actions instead. So they get to either play a card or refresh. Metal 2, your opponent cannot play cards face down in this line. So keep in mind, this would prevent any sort of effect that lets you play cards face down. So even if it's like from the top of the deck, like with the life deck, that Metal 2 will prevent that. All right, Metal 3, draw 1 card, delete all cards meaning all. So covered, uncovered. All cards in one other line with 8 or more cards. So this is a pretty crazy card. But I've never seen it. I haven't seen it actually happen yet. So it's kind of a hard effect to get going. And then like, you know, when like you do finally have 8 or more cards in one line, you know, maybe half the time you might want them to be in that line, half the time you won't. So this one's kind of a weird one. This is a very weird card, but at least it draws you a card. So really most of the time it's just metal 3, you draw 1 card. Oh, no metal 4, right? Because metals, as you saw, there was no metal 4. That's because metal is the only other protocol in this box that goes all the way up to 6. Metal 5, you discard 1 card. And metal 6. So when this card would be covered or flipped, first delete this card. So this can be kind of a tricky card because it has to be like your top card, but again it's a 6, so that's pretty cool. And there's no other caveat, like unlike the gravity 6, it doesn't play a card for your opponent. So this is just a straight 6 value for 1, but you can't play any more cards on this stack or else you delete it. So pretty tricky one. So yeah, that's metal. I think metal is fun, but it can be a little weird. All right, now on to what I think is one of the more exciting ones, one of the more exciting protocols. My friend absolutely loves this one and I hate him for it. Here we have Plague, slow death from within. So the idea behind this protocol is very straightforward. They're just forcing you to discard cards like nothing else, and it does not feel great when it's used against you. Here we go. Plague 0. Your opponent discards 1 card. Yep. Your opponent cannot play cards in this line. So whenever this Plague 0 is the top card of a stack, no, your opponent can't play any other cards in this line. Obviously, as soon as you cover this card up, you know, that effect goes away. But still, locking down a whole line, oh my god, this is already Plague coming out swinging. Plague 1. So as soon as you reveal it, your opponent discards 1 card. Okay. And the passive, after your opponent discards cards, draw 1 card. I mean, great. Your opponent discards a card and you get to draw a card. This Plague 1. Pretty sweet. Now, keep in mind, this says after your opponent discards cards. So if they, like say for example, they are clearing cache and they have to discard like 2 cards, you still only draw the 1 card. It's after your opponent discards all their cards, not for every card. So keep that in mind. Plague 2. Discard 1 or more cards. Your opponent discards the amount of cards discarded plus 1. I mean, I hate playing against this protocol, but it is very cool. So far, I think all 3 of these cards have been awesome. Plague 3. Flip each other face-up card. Okay, so be careful with this one. It says flip each other, but this, you can also read this as flip each other face-up uncovered card. So because this does not have the word all, it does not mean all face-up cards. It just means the ones that are uncovered. So flip each other face-up uncovered card. Plague 4. This is a passive, so at the end of every turn, your opponent deletes 1 of their face down cards. You may flip this card. Okay, so once again, your opponent deletes 1 of their face down uncovered cards, and then it says you may flip this card. So this happens at the end of every turn. So you might be wondering why the heck this is even here. You may flip this card. Like, why would you want to ever flip this card? And probably most of the time you wouldn't. However, if you're playing against someone who's good, they might be able to use this effect against you just because they can. So keep in mind, your opponent is the one who gets to choose which card is deleted. So they get to choose basically what effect they're revealing whenever they delete a card. So keep that in mind with Plague 4. And then Plague 5, you discard 1 card. Yeah, man, this one's great. All right, and last and certainly not least, this is probably one of the, like, up there with Plague is like one of those ones that I just hate playing against. Know your foe's mind. This is Psychic. So I do love the way this protocol is designed. So the idea is just like, yeah, it's control. It's controlling your opponent. It's controlling your opponent through a bunch of different ways too. It's not just through one way. If you're a blue player in Magic, first off, me too. And also, this is the protocol for you. Let us take a look. Now, there are no counter spells though, so I mean, like, don't get too excited. Okay, Psychic 0. Draw 2 cards. Your opponent discards 2 cards, then reveals their hand. So this one is, wow, okay, so I know I already read through all these, but for some reason while reading this again, I got mad. So you're up 2 cards, they're down 2 cards, and then you get to see what they have left in their hand. I mean, that's awesome. Psychic 1. The passive is your opponent can only play cards face down, which is insane. So in a lane, you cannot play cards face up. Now, luckily, this isn't too overpowered because it says at the start, flip this card. So it only lasts for a turn. So for 1 turn, you're preventing your opponent from playing anything too powerful in a line, which is, you know, pretty good. Psychic 2. Your opponent discards 2 cards. Rearrange their protocol. So we got more discarding, you know, going on. We had some we already had a bunch with Plague, and we already had a bunch with the Psychic 0, but now we got more discarding. So your opponent discards 2 cards, rearrange their protocols. Keep in mind, again, you have to shift their protocols. You have to rearrange them in some way. You can't leave them as is. Psychic 3. Your opponent discards 1 card, shift one of their cards. So, you know, more control, making your opponent feel helpless possibly. But of course, keep in mind, first off, one of their uncovered cards, and second off, you know, you want to be careful with whatever you uncover, because it could be a good effect for them. Psychic 4. You may return one of your opponent's cards. If you do, flip this card. So this happens at the end of every turn. You have the potential to return one of their cards to their hands, and then this flips over into a 2-power, of course, like they all do. Pretty good. And Psychic 5, you discard 1 card. So yeah. Oh man, Psychic, you little bastard protocol, you. All right, guys, we're almost done with this one. So at the time of the recording of this video, there are currently 2 products out for Compile. One is the main one, which is the main box that I showed you earlier, and one is like a little expansion pack called Ox 1, and it comes with 3 new protocols. Okay, so here's the first one that we're going to go over from that pack. So once again, these ones will not show up in the main box. So first up, we got Love. So Love, I like this one because the theme and mechanics, you know, shine through really well. So the idea is you're going to be giving stuff to your opponent, and ideally you'll be getting more stuff than you give to your opponent, but you're going to be like giving bonuses to your opponent, but then you'll be able to get more out of it. So let's just go through this real quick. So one interesting thing right off the bat with Love is that there is no 0 card. Okay, so we're starting off with the 1. All right, and so the 1 says the middle effect, draw the top card of your opponent's deck. So I think this is the only card that I've seen so far that lets you just straight up draw a card from your opponent's deck. Now during the game you can do that using the control opponent. So real quick, just to be clear with the rules on the drawing a card from the top of an opponent's deck, you can, if you draw a card from your opponent's deck, you have to play it to the same line as their protocol of that matching protocol. So it doesn't, you know, the protocol doesn't have to be on your side, but it still has to be the same line. All right, and at the end of the turn, it says, at the end, you may give 1 card from your hand to your opponent, and if you do, draw 2 cards. So that's a pretty cool passive that as long as it stays uncovered, you have, and it's nice because, you know, it's optional. So whenever you want to do, if you have a card that you think might be garbage, like maybe you already compiled it or something, then yeah, go ahead. I feel like this one's a fun protocol. All right, Love 2. Your opponent draws 1 card, and then you refresh. Ideally, I mean, if you and your opponent are both drawing 1 card, this is kind of not the best use of the card, but still, you know, you have the potential to draw a lot of cards and they only get 1 back. So that's pretty cool. Love 3. Take 1 random card from your opponent's hand, give 1 card from your hand to your opponent. So this is just a straight up exchange. So you're going to take a random card from them, and then you're going to choose which card to give back. So in the end, you should still come out on top. So this is a pretty interesting card. Love 4, reveal 1 card from your hand, flip 1 card, flip 1 uncovered card. This one's I think this is a pretty good 4, right? Because most of the 4s tend to have pretty neutral abilities, but I think this one's like just a net positive. So yeah, I mean, well, you do have to reveal a card, but usually it's usually pretty easy to reveal something that's not that important. So yeah, this one's pretty good. The usual 5. And then finally, Love 6, your opponent draws 2 cards. So this is probably like, I don't know. So this might be one of the harshest effects on a 6, but you know, it fits the theme of Love. You give your opponents 2 cards. Of course, you get 6 value in the lane. So it's up to you to decide whether or not that's worth it. Yeah, I love this one. All right, and of course, thematically, you know, we have to follow up Love with its counterpart, Hate. Hate, Ultimate Disdain. So this protocol, again, I think these two, the last one and this one, they're very thematically like tight knit, and they mechanically same thing. This one is one of the brutal ones, kind of like Plague and Psychic, but I feel like this one's even more brutal. It feels similar to Death, where you're doing a lot of deletion, but this one is like there's like more deletion. Of course, you're also deleting your own stuff as well. So it feels like the theme is just blind hatred at any cost. So all right, let's start with Hate 0. Delete 1 card, simple, straightforward. You love to see it. Delete 1 uncovered card. Hate 1. Discard 3 cards. Delete 1 card, delete 1 card. So first you discard 3 cards. Then you choose 2 cards to delete, one right after the other. Of course, both those cards have to be uncovered. Although you could, theoretically, if there was a covered card with only 1 card on top, you could delete the top card and then delete the bottom card. All right, Hate 2. Okay, so this is a bit of a weird one. Okay, this is a weird one for a couple reasons. Okay, let me read the text out first. This is the actual text. Delete your highest value uncovered card. Delete your opponent's highest value uncovered card. So this text used to say, it used to be like any other card where it said delete your highest value card, delete your highest value card. But that got confusing and people were misinterpreting the rules. So they made the uncovered explicit on this one. This is a kind of inconsistent with the rest of the templating. So don't think that just because this one explicitly says uncovered that you were playing all the rest of the cards wrong. So don't get confused. One other thing that you want to note is that if this card is your highest value card with like the first deletion, it'll delete itself and then the second effect will never go off. So keep that in mind. Hate 3. After you delete cards, draw 1 card. Again, awesome. I love that this protocol just synergizes with itself so well. So I like that it's straightforward and simple too. Hate 4. When this card would be covered, first delete the lowest value covered card in this line. Yeah, nothing to complain about there. I think this is a pretty good effect for a 4, so nice. And then the usual 5. Man, with Psychic, Plague, and Death in the game, you have some potential for some really like mean drafts, you know, especially once you get this card in your collection. Or this protocol, once you get this protocol in your collection. And finally, to end it off, we have Apathy. So all 3 protocols in Ox 1, they have this same theme. We have love, death, and apathy. And I really like all of them have a very like cohesive, very simple, straightforward game plan. And I really like that. And the idea behind Apathy is just flipping stuff face down. It's almost like you're saying, get that out of here. I just don't want to see it. I don't care to see that anymore. I don't care. You can turn off certain effects too. And then again, it just feels like you're saying, I don't care about your effects. It's pretty cool. All right, let's start with Apathy 0. Your total value in this line is increased by 1 for each face down card in this line. So the whole deck is all about turning cards face down, which is pretty cool. You know, this protocol might synergize with something like Life, which also cares about having face down cards, but then you get to flip them over, right? Or Darkness, which also gets bonuses for face down cards. So this is cool. By the way, never take anything I say as advice. I don't know. I'm not good at this game. All right, Apathy 1. Flip all other face up cards in this line. So all means bypassing covered cards. Apathy 2. Ignore all middle commands on cards in this line. So this one's cool. So all the like reveal effects that trigger whenever a card is flipped or a card is maybe revealed when something gets shifted or returned or something or deleted. Yeah, you ignore all those in the line. So this is pretty cool. When this card would be covered, first flip this card. So you can't. So when you cover something up, you don't get to keep the top box, which is, you know, a little sad, but maybe, you know, for the best. Apathy 3, flip one of your opponent's face up covered cards. Again, just turning more stuff face down. Cohesive. Apathy 4, you may flip one of your face up covered cards. Very, very straightforward protocol. And then Apathy 5, you discard 1 card. All right, that was Ox 1. Guys, if you found this video helpful or fun or entertaining in any way, please let me know why you did in the comments. If you have the game, please let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below as well. I don't think I'll be doing much tabletop stuff on this channel, but I really wanted to just talk about this game. So that's all I got. Please check out my other videos. This has been Jinteki, signing out.